and welcome to the Demo Aquaponics cabin. So if you've been following this series of videos, you'll realise that we're trying to teach you how to do aquaponics in your own home. And the way that we're doing that so that everybody has access to this is to buy things from Walmart, everyday items that we can use to create a kit. Last time out, we built the basis of our kit, and this time we're going to have a look at how to actually install this and get it up and running. Okay, great. So this is where we left off. We basically put together our everything from Walmart aquaponics kit. But what I've done since then is I've done two things. I've removed the labels off the front of each of the boxes because we don't need them anymore. And I've also trimmed the airline. Now I've left 3 inches here, and I've trimmed it this way for a reason. We want a little bit of excess just in case we choose to make our downpipe longer. We might actually put a whole straw back in there depending on the type of media that we use, but we'll get into that later. But 3 inches of excess pipe gives us a little bit of flexibility. And the reason for that is we actually want to fit our safety device to this kit. Now your pump comes with one of these, and this is a check valve, also known as a non-return valve. There's an arrow actually on this valve here, and basically that shows the flow of air. What this valve does is it allows air to flow one way, but it doesn't allow anything to return the opposite way. And so what we're going to do is to put this into the top of our airline, like so. And so what can happen sometimes is that during a power outage, it is possible in some circumstances for the water to actually flow back down the airline. And what we don't want that to do is to return to the pump. Okay, fantastic. So we've attached our check valve or non-return valve to our kit. And the arrow always wants to be pointing away from the air pump and to the kit itself. Okay, so we're going to attach our simple single outlet Walmart aquaculture air pump to our kit, and that's going to be ready to go. Now we are going to talk a little bit more in a later video about air pumps and what we can use, because actually this kit can work completely off the grid. At the moment we're using a mains powered air pump, but actually we can use a solar panel and a 1-watt air pump to do the job just as well. So one of the most important things about setting up our kit correctly is that we provide the right sort of surface area for the bacteria to multiply in. Effectively, by having 2 separate trays with media in, we're actually doubling the amount of media that you would normally find in a fish tank. So the gravel that lays on the bottom of a fish tank is where bacteria live, and that's why it's possible to keep fish in such a small amount of water. The bacteria actually live between the rocks and the sediment and actually convert that fish waste into something less harmful. So this is what we have to do now. We have to decide what type of media we're going to use in our system. And so we have the top tray, which will start calling the grow bed, and the bottom tray that will start calling the tank. Because this is the everything from Walmart kit, naturally you can find the media that you need for this kit at Walmart too. So if you head over to the aquarium section, you'll find the aquarium gravel and everything that you need to fill this kit up. The one thing I would say though is we need about 1 inch in depth of gravel in our grow bed and about 1.5 inches of gravel in our tank. And that's actually quite a lot of aquarium gravel. I would say probably between 5 and 6 of the large bags that Walmart sells. And that's okay, but this wouldn't be a demo aquaponics video if we didn't show you some cost-effective methods and other materials that you can use. So it might be really tempting to go and dig your own sand and gravel out of the ground, but I really recommend that you don't do that. And the reason for that is we don't know what's in that material. Whatever goes into this kit is going to stay in this kit, and so we need to make sure that it's free of any chemicals or harmful bacteria. So often it's actually better to go and buy sand or gravel from a shop. Alternatively, if you're blessed like us living in the mountains in Colorado, you can go and harvest some gravel and some sediment from a local stream. And providing you're on national forest property, that's absolutely okay to do that as long as it's for hobby purposes and not for commercial use. So we'll show you a little bit more about that later, but let's look at a few materials, starting with sand. Okay, so for all of the shop-bought materials you could purchase, sand is going to be the most cost-effective. A bag of sand is going to go a long way. Now the only downside to that is that sand is very dense, and bacteria have a hard time colonising in it. And as a result, actually, sand-based systems take much longer to mature than sand and gravel mixes or gravel-based systems. Another downside to using sand is that not all fish enjoy being kept in a sandy environment. So you have to have an idea of what type of fish you're going to keep in your system first. It's always good to do your research, as the welfare of the animals is one of the most important things, and that's what's going to make our kit a success. Now we actually need to prepare our sand before we can put it in one of these kits. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of really fine silt in sand, and what we want is the heavier, thicker stuff. Now the way of separating that is to fill a bucket with 1/3 of sand and fill the rest with water. Give it a good stir around and you'll see that the water is very, very cloudy. If you carefully pour away that surface water, rinse and repeat as many times as is necessary before the water becomes perfectly clear. And as you look down into your bucket, you can see your sand nice and clear on the bottom. That's how we process sand. Now you can, if you really want to, and you want to be super certain that your sand is nice and clean, you can actually boil it up as well, and you can do the same for gravel. Okay, so we've touched on aquarium gravel already. Now obviously aquarium gravel is going to be perfect for the job. The gravel is just the right size, it's treated, and it gives the perfect surface area for bacteria to grow on. We still do need to give it a run under the tap though before we put it into our system, just to get rid of any dust particles that's in there. A good way of doing that is to put it into a sieve and just give it a run under a cold water tap. Okay, so you can actually use gravel from a building supply store. There's nothing wrong with that. It just needs to be really, really well cleaned. And actually, the smaller the size of the gravel, the better it's going to be for your kit. Really large stones is not going to be particularly good. The reason for that is with larger stones, the actual overall surface area that the bacteria can multiply on is actually decreased. So what we really want is quite dense, small gravel. And again, we need to wash this thoroughly before it actually goes into our system. And again, if you want to, you can actually treat it with boiling water, and that's going to get rid of any harmful bacteria or anything in there that we really don't want that could get into our system. What we can do also to make that even more effective is to mix 2/3 gravel with 1/3 sand, and that's actually a really nice balance for the kit, and that works really well. So here in Colorado, we're actually at 8,500 feet, and we're right up in the mountains. What that means is that we have some awesome local rivers and streams that are really accessible. What I wanted to know is, could I take some of the gravel and the sand from these local streams and actually jumpstart my aquaponics kit? So the reason I say jumpstart is that bacteria will have already colonised in this material. Now I've done some local water testing, and I know that there's not a huge amount of bacteria in the streams at this time of the year, and they're very, very cold. But it's still a definite advantage over starting from the very beginning. There's already bacteria in there, there's minerals in there that wouldn't ordinarily be found in just standard sand or gravel bought from a shop. I've definitely found that harvesting this material at colder times of year is definitely beneficial. If you try to take this material in summer, you're going to end up with quite a few bugs and some parasites in the water. So if you're going to do this, now is the ideal time. Here in Colorado, it's actually permissible to take a small amount of this material from a local stream, providing that it's on national forest land. You do need to be really careful though that you know that it's okay for you to do this. If you live in a different state or in a different country, make sure you have the permission to remove this material. So there's a couple of things to look for when we're selecting a stream to remove some material from. Number one, it has to be fast flowing. Only fast flowing rivers or streams are going to provide you with a type of sand, gravel and sediment that's going to be useful for your kit. Number two is that we want to be collecting our material upstream of where anybody lives. And the reason for that is that we don't want to be collecting polluted water. We want to avoid anywhere where there's a lot of weed and a lot of algae. Okay, so before we head out, there's just a couple of simple tools that we need. We have a nice spade here. I like the type with a pointy tip because actually trying to get gravel out of a little stream is surprisingly difficult. So if you've got a more narrow shaped shovel or spade, that's going to help a lot. Here we have a dollar store strainer, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to shovel some of our gravel into this guy, give it a bit of a wash in the water. We don't want all of the mud and sediment going into our system, and we're going to empty that into our bucket. Okay, really obvious one here, a couple of buckets. What we have to be careful of though is that these buckets are safe for us to use, and what I mean by that is that we know what's been in the bucket before we come to use it. If we start gathering material in a contaminated bucket, it's going to cause us problems and our system's going to fail. So it's really important. I would buy a bucket simply for this purpose, know that it's completely clean, and just go ahead and use it. Okay, so the last thing on our list is our water container. Just need to make sure that your container is really clean and it's not had any chemicals in it before you come to use it. You might want to recycle some of your old drinks bottles, and that's absolutely fine. Just make sure you give them a good rinse out before you use them, and make sure that the only thing that's ever been in them has been a food safe product. The stream that I'm actually going to use is about 15 minutes drive away. Let's head out and go and get some media for our kits.